It's okay.
Okay.
Just
I
go
will
forward.
speak as loud as I can.
Okay.
Shall I go?
Yes, please.
Excellent. Um, just again, a big thank you to all of you watching this session, and my sincere apology for not being there in person. It's circumstances beyond control. I'm sure every working parent can understand the scenario where you have a sick partner and all of a sudden no childcare. And that's particularly a problem if you're planning to leave the country for a night. So I'm so sorry that I can't be there today. I was really looking forward to it. Um, but as I was this morning sitting at the doctor's and being really frustrated and disappointed with the fact that I can't be here with you in person, I thought, maybe there is something in there that we can learn from. Um, because in a situation, when we were hatching a plan and trying to quickly rejig the session so that you can still get good value out of your attendance today, I thought actually this situation is quite appropriate in many ways for something that I want to talk to you about today, and that is about resilience, because our original plans were overthrown, yet as we were creative and quick thinking of how to make something else happen. And that is an incredibly important factor of making a business successful. Resilience. When we talk about resilience in a business context, we often think about, oh, what if a new competitor arises or some major unforeseen event happens? But actually, an organization can only be as resilient and only as successful as the people inside the business. And that's exactly what I want to talk to you about today. I also have a couple of offers to make at the end, free offers just to make up to you for the fact that I'm not there in person. But let's get on with the main part of the session. You see, in my 19 years as a business professional and as a consultant, I've worked with quite a number of different organizations. Some were big, some were small, and I had the great opportunity to train with PricewaterhouseCoopers as a business consultant and chartered accountant. And that was a great education, to be honest, because I got all this experience and exposed to so many different businesses. But there was one thing that I always felt was a bit of a shame, because I worked with lots and lots of clients in lots and lots of different organizations, and yet most of the people that I worked with, they were really dissatisfied with their work. Some were even really unhappy, despite the fact that they had quite good jobs. We're not talking horrible jobs here. I always particularly think of one lady, and she was smart, she was intelligent, and she had a good job, and yet she complained about her job every single day of her life. Every day that I worked there for 3 years. And then I got a different client and I didn't work there. So as far as I'm concerned, she might still be complaining. And I thought, that is a real shame. And yet, these kind of attitudes, they are very, very common. They're so common that studies by very big research firms have shown, studies that were done over the last 30 years, they have shown that around 70 to 80% of the workforce is disengaged. That means 70 to 80% of people are not happy at their job. And of course, what comes with that when people aren't happy, you get low productivity, you get a lot of mistakes, you get a lot of absenteeism. It just always felt to me as a real big waste of human potential and a big waste for the businesses involved. Yet, at the same time, to be honest, I sometimes wondered of like, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just being naive. And that carried on until I got a new client. And that client was just amazing. That client did everything different. Now you have to remember, those were the days of the first .com boom. And this was a little software organization. And they had grown rapidly from just 4 people in the traditional kind of garage scenario. You know, they build up the business in the garage. They had grown from 2 people to 200, 4 people to 200 in a really short space of time. And they had raised a lot of capital and they had grown dramatically. And yet, they just seemed to do everything different. They didn't have big hierarchies or long decision-making processes. They didn't have tons of board reports that were produced every month. They just had a very flat management structure and really engaged people. And you notice that the moment you walked into their offices, it was fun to be there. I actually really enjoyed that, to be there. Now, some people say to me, okay, yeah, of course, it works in software and those kind of industries. But I actually don't believe that. I think the results that that business saw can be replicated elsewhere. And that's exactly what I decided and got determined to do. So over time, I started to put together things that I have seen working at organizations. And I started to have conversations with people who were managing their businesses in a different way. And I created a framework of insights and tools and techniques that really proved successful. And doing that, we also started to see some really unusual results. Because at the time, I was doing mainly work around business process re-engineering or business restructuring, that kind of thing. Yet the results we saw were unusual because we got really positive feedback in areas that we didn't expect to, and that much exceeded the original brief. So I then started to get very excited and feel like, oh, my original theory of, yes, managing yourself in different ways can work is actually true. And that is something that I'm really excited to tell you a bit more about today. Now, as we go through the seminar, you might hear some things which you think are just common sense. But as we all know, common sense is not that common. And yet, if you hear something that is common sense, that's really great, because I want to then give you some thoughts and suggestions of how you could do something really uncommon with that and get really uncommonly good results. I'll also try to provide a fresh perspective that shows why maybe your past efforts to improve performance in your organization might not have worked. And so you might hear some things that feel a bit unfamiliar or counterintuitive. Now, if you hear something that feels counterintuitive, I challenge you, if you want to make a real sustainable change in your organization, keep with us and write down what you want to explore. Finally, a really common reaction of some of the people when I talk to them about these things is to say, yes, Miriam, these insights, tools and techniques, they sound great, that's fine, but it would never work in my business. That is a really common thing I hear. And if you at any point think that it really couldn't work for your business, then write that down as well. Write it down, because I would love to show you later how you can actually, how businesses who are in the same situations as you have made use of these tools and techniques, and how you can do the same to become just tremendously successful. Okay, what we will cover. What I want to cover in this session are the real sources of productivity, creativity, and, yes, resilience and success. I I want to really talk about what common business practices are actually bad for performance and what undermines most efforts to improve. We'll then have a look at the business case for self-management. And I want to talk to you about an example of moving to self-management. And at the end, I'll spend a short bit on how you can overcome resistance in your organization. I hope that's okay, and I hope you're all ready. So let's get started. Now, how to give your business the best chance of success. Maybe you're successful already and just want a bit more. This part is really about giving the best chances. Let's start off with a very brief history lesson. You might have heard of the Standard & Poor's Index 500, which is a measure of how well an organization does. Now, 50 years ago, if you were in the Standard & Poor's 500 companies, that meant that your organization had a lifespan of approximately 75 to 50 years. Now, if you fast forward to today, that lifespan is 15 years and it is reducing. That is incredible because such a very short lifespan is it just shows the rapid change that we're all facing. We're really living in a fast-moving world. I'm sure you're all aware of that, and this is just the evidence. I have some statistics of what that meant in the UK. I'm sure the situation is similar for you. In the period between 2008 to 2014, 13 million jobs were lost in the UK alone. And globally, the numbers are just staggering. And in the UK, 1 million established businesses, not little startups, established businesses folded. I'd love to know what the statistics were in Slovenia. I had a quick Google, but wasn't quite sure if I got the right one. So I look to you to provide that information. Now, how do you survive in a world that changes so rapidly, where technology, demographic changes, and curveballs like a global recession could just mean your business folds? Well, strangely enough, some businesses actually do incredibly well, and they have done incredibly well in that period. Now, they do that by managing themselves in a very different way. Of course, they do things like developing a strategy, and they try to do things efficiently and effectively, and they control costs and things like that, and provide excellent customer service. But that's not the only thing they focus on. These successful businesses, they do something different. They go upstream in to the source of success, because these businesses, they know that great strategies are produced by people who are engaged in their work, and they know that costs will actually be controlled if employees feel that they have a stake in the organization and that their actions matter. These successful organizations also know that things like innovation and great products and great customer service comes when the individuals in the organization are growing and changing, when they're taking on new challenges, learning new skills, and they're entertaining new ideas. So when these organizations say that their people are the most important asset to them, they actually really mean that, and they live it. They don't pay lip service, they really, really act on that statement. And one of the very first things that these organizations do is actually quite simple. It's so simple that many times it's just dismissed as soft or fluffy or unimportant. Because what these organizations do is they focus on happiness. Now, I don't mean the kind of inane, oh, let's all smile or have big round smileys on our t-shirts, or let's pretend everything is fine while everything actually isn't fine. No, no. What I mean is these organizations, they focus on creating a positive baseline experience for their employees. They create an environment where employees can have positive emotions, they can have positive moods, they can have a positive perspective. It's what Martin Seligman, the founder of positive psychology, calls a flourishing environment. Let me give you a few examples just to convince people with a money mind. Pret a Manger, which is a large sandwich chain in the UK, they see 14% annual growth year on year, and they claim this is due to the fact that they focus on happiness for their employees. 14% is a massive growth in this very competitive market. Similar, HCL, they are a software company based in India, incredibly competitive market with very, very low margins, and they have seen an annual compound growth of 24% over the last 6 years, and they say it's down to happy staff. Last example, Adobe. You probably all have used their software in terms of the PDF reader. They provide the world's leading creative software for design artists and so on. And they say the fact that their staff are so creative is completely and entirely down to the fact that the organization tries their best to keep them happy. So these are quite strong examples of happiness causing success, but it does still fly a little bit into the face of conventional wisdom, doesn't it? Some people might argue, well, no surprise people are happy there, because they're happy because the companies are successful. That's what we normally think. Happiness follows success, don't we? And some people have even said that to me, like, well, actually, I don't care. Happiness has no place in business anyway. It's work, not pleasure. But let me explain, give you a little insight this here. And this is about how our brain works. Because, as it turns out, research in neurosciences as well as in psychology have shown that happy brains perform better. Now, if a brain is primed for happiness, stress is reduced. Makes sense, doesn't it? And reducing stress is very important because this research has shown that when brains react to stress, they can't distinguish between something that's a mortal threat, like a saber-toothed tiger coming running at you, or a deadline to hand in a report approaching. To the brain under stress, these two situations are the same and they react the same. So what the brain will do, it will shut down on any functions that aren't needed to escape a mortal danger, as in a saber-toothed tiger. And what that means is they become super focused, these brains, but they also stop being very good at things such as planning or creating smart strategies, at remembering important facts, or at building relationships and creative thinking. Yet those things are very, very important if you want to succeed in the modern business world, aren't they? Happy brains, on the other hand, happy brains, as in, like, they don't have these stresses, they're really good at creative thinking, finding solutions, being resilient when situations change, planning, strategizing, and so on. And in fact, Sean Aker, the former Harvard professor and consultant, he's found out that happy brains are even better at saving lives. He describes this fantastic experiment in his book, The Happiness Advantage, where doctors are given a lollipop, just a sweet, before they have to make a patient diagnosis. And those doctors who have been given a lollipop were twice as fast and twice as accurate in making their diagnosis than those doctors who hadn't been given the lollipop. And here comes the clincher. The doctors who'd been given the lollipop, they didn't even eat it. It wasn't about getting a sugar rush. It was simply the fact that they were given something that made them a tiny bit happier. Now, I think that makes a really strong case for happiness in business. Yet, I'm guessing you would be forgiven to react at this point like one of my recent clients in a financial services institution. One moment, please. Because that client said to me, Miriam, I care about my people. I really do, but I'm not their babysitter. It's not my role to make them happy. And that's a completely fair point. And I actually totally agree. It's not the organization's responsibility to make the people happy. In fact, never think that you're their babysitter. That's patronizing. However, what you can do is you can recognize that the people in your organization, they are smart, they're adults, they're reliable, they can be trusted. Pardon me. And if you realize that, you will start treating them in a different way. You will start enabling them to make decisions. You will start giving them the responsibilities and the trust that they need to do their jobs. And that in itself will create tremendous satisfaction for your people. Now, a very simple way I like to get people started on bringing a little bit more happiness in their organization is making happiness a daily exercise. And I love this example from the Japanese firm Envision. They're a software company again, and they start the day in very short team meetings where their employees share something positive. That might be something in the business, something that they've come across. Doesn't matter. It's a little primer, just like the lollipop that was given to the doctors. And they don't even dwell on this. We're talking short 5-minute meetings. Yet this tiny little primer gets everybody into a happier mood. And it has tremendous success. Again, Envision manages to stand out among the competition. So I strongly encourage you to consider how you can make happiness a daily exercise in your business. And I'll be happy to provide some more ideas via some exercises I can send to you later on. Now, of course, we talked about how important happiness is, but of course, alone, that's not enough. And I just want to repeat here, we're talking about real flourishing happiness, not pretending everything is fine or ignoring any negative aspects that might be going on. But to make your business successful, of course, you need more things. You need things like products and services, and you need the right strategy, you need to be in the right places, you need marketing, you need internal processes, all the kind of things that make your business efficient and effective. Because without those things, even the happiest place will probably struggle. But what I suggest is that in order to get these things in place, you need something else. Any guesses for what that is? Yep, you need the right people. Now, a curious thing happens when I speak to clients, because everybody is looking for people who are skilled and experienced. And they all ask me, well, or they ask their recruitment agent to be more precise, where can we find these skilled and experienced businesses? Because so many people, so many organizations complain that they just don't have the right staff, despite the very best effort to recruit. And you know what? I don't buy it. Because in my personal experience, the real issues these organizations are facing are not down to the skill of their staff or their experience. It's down to something else. And this is where we start talking about the pillars that really build success for your business. These pillars are, not very surprisingly, motivation and engagement. Because, as we said before, if you have engaged people who are motivated, you will get great product strategies, great marketing, great customer service. They are the ones who create them. Yes, your people will need skills and possibly experience, but I would guess that you have hired people who are smart, skilled, experienced. I really would think that's probably why you have hired them. But you will never ever get top performance out of them if they are not motivated and engaged. Now, you really don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that that's true. What is surprising, though, is how many businesses don't manage to do it. It seems to be beyond even a rocket scientist to translate this knowledge into action. Because, as we looked at before, the vast majority of organizations and companies, institutions, they just do it wrong. Remember that stat? 70 to 80% of employees being disengaged? That's one. And there's a reason, in my opinion, of why we end up doing it wrong. And that's because we have a mindset about motivation that doesn't really work on a long-term basis. Most of us have been brought up with a carrot and stick approach to motivation. That carrot and stick says, well, if you work hard, you get promoted. If you hit your sales target, you get a bonus. Even as a child, you get told, if you study a lot, you get good grades. Or if, like me, you have a toddler, I say to him, if you eat your food, you will get dessert. But if any parent can tell you, that approach only actually gets you so far. You still will really struggle to get spinach down your toddler, and it doesn't last for very long, the bribe. Yet interestingly, we think that bribe will work in business terms. And that is because we all have been taught, and this is what most business schools around the world teach, that humans are actually self-interested and will act in a logical way to maximize what's best for them, to maximize what's in their self-interest. Only problem with that thinking is it's not true. Because people are not rational, self-interested, wealth-maximizing beings. And this has been proven by science and research over and over for a long period. Experiments on this go all the way back to the 1940s, and yet it's still been resoundingly ignored by businesses and organizations around the world. Even in 2002, David Kahneman, he became the first psychologist who won the Nobel Prize in economics because he proved yet empirical findings that challenge this notion of rational human behavior. And yet we still continue to manage motivation in our businesses the same way as we always have done. And what we do, what traditionally is done, is we focus on something called extrinsic motivation. Now, extrinsic motivation is created by the desire in a person for external, tangible outcomes and rewards. such as money, power, prestige, or by the fear of certain tangible outcomes, such as losing your job. And yes, intrinsic motivation exists and it does work, and that's what our systems of bonuses and incentives and so on are based on. Yet it's been proven not to be a very sustainable kind of motivation and not the most powerful by any means. Because the most powerful motivation is actually something else. It's called, surprise, surprise, intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is the desire to seek out new things and new challenges, to learn and to gain knowledge, and it's driven by an inherent interest or enjoyment in a task. And small children, for example, are born full of intrinsic motivation. They all love to learn, and they keep that until, unfortunately, our school systems seem to take it out of it. Looking at small children, you really believe that intrinsic motivation is something that's innate in all of us. I'm guessing it's a survival trait. Now, I keep saying research has shown, and I will give you a very concrete example on the importance of intrinsic versus extrinsic rewards. And in the 1970s, Mark Lepper, David Green, and Richard Nesbitt conducted what's now a classic experiment with a group of preschool children. And what they did is they observed a group of children who liked to draw. They just enjoyed drawing. And they then divided these children into 3 groups. The first group were told, oh, if you continue to draw, you will get a nice blue ribbon with your name on it. The second group was not told about the blue ribbon, but they were given one after the children had drawn nice pictures. In the third group, they were neither told about the ribbon, and they didn't get one either. Now, in this experiment, this continued for a period of several weeks. And at the end of that time, the researchers observed the children again. And guess what they found? The children who hadn't been told about that there was a reward and weren't given one, and the children who were given one but didn't know about it in advance, they continued to draw with exactly the same amount of enthusiasm over the same time as before. Yet those children who were told that they would get a reward if they continued drawing, their participation in drawing dropped by 30%. They just didn't want to draw anymore. Something that they had previously done for fun and out of enjoyment had become work, and therefore their motivation to continue doing that was completely undermined. Now you might say, okay, these are children, but actually versions of this experiment have been conducted around the world. And in every single experiment, it was found that providing extrinsic motivation undermines performance. I'll give you another. As an example, there was an experiment where people were offered 5 months worth of pay for completing a range of tasks that required motor skills, but also concentration and creativity. And that was very important. And this experiment showed again that the people who were offered a large reward, as in 5 months worth of pay, gave up earlier, they were less committed, they were less creative in their solutions, and their concentration broke quicker than those people who were not offered the same reward. So it just goes to show that if you limit your staff motivation to extrinsic rewards such as bonuses and pay and things like that, you are likely to introduce lower performance, less ingenuity, less commitment, and greater willingness to give up than if you motivate your staff in intrinsic ways. In fact, there's even been some studies that too strong a focus on things like monetary bonuses can lead to unethical behaviors. For example, Sears, the US department store, they have a motor division where they fix their customers' cars. And once they started introducing bonuses for how many cars a mechanic would fix, guess what happened? All of a sudden, their customers would be charged for unnecessary repairs.
Miriam?
You remember Enron?
Miriam?
Yes?
Sorry, you're doing great. I just have to remind you on the clock. You have like 5 minutes to conclude. So you have like 5 minutes to to conclude the session. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
5 minutes.
Yeah, give it all.
Okie doke. As we said, I'll leave it here, but there's a strong case for extrinsic motivation having a negative impact on behavior. Now, of course, you need to have a balance because you do need to pay your people fairly. Otherwise, nobody will be motivated. But let's quickly look at what are the intrinsic motivators. We're talking about things that don't cost a lot of money. We talk about things like autonomy, as in I control, mastery, as in I improve, give your people a chance to learn, purpose, I make a difference, and you cannot underestimate this one. Progress. People like to see that they're making progress towards a goal. And then social interaction, connecting with others, is immensely important for people's intrinsic motivation. We are, as humans, we are social animals. Now, I want to spend the last few minutes on looking at the business case for self-management, because I'm sure you have come across the cases of organizations that are managing themselves differently. I've mentioned some of them at the beginning, and self-management means that these organizations provide the intrinsic motivators. They provide the autonomy that people can make their own decisions. They enable their staff to go off and master new skills. They are strongly linked to purpose, and they give them feedback on progress. And most importantly, they provide this social interaction. So, what is the business case for self-management? It's quite tricky to make sweeping statements about financial success for these organizations, and because they all have different purposes, and fulfilling their purpose is more important to them than, say, another 0.5% on the profit margin. I know that later on you will be talking to the Dutch healthcare firm Bertels, and they are an amazing example of self-management and tremendous success. I don't want to steal their fire, so I'll let them tell you about it. But let's quickly look at the business case for self-management. Because what do we have on the plus side? Well, every organization that has been studied that moved to self-management has shown improved financial results. And we're talking not just 1 year or 2 years. Favi, a French manufacturing firm, has proven that their financial results have gone up since 1985. That's 30 years, and I think we can call that a proven position. Secondly, market growth. Again, if you speak to Bertels, they have cornered their market without actually trying. Attracting talent. The millennials that are entering the marketplace, they want to work in organizations that give them the freedom to grow and develop and flourish. And therefore, they seek out organizations that look at self-management and have at least adopted principles of it. Well, you wouldn't see the improved financial results and market growth without increased productivity. And from a personal experience, I can say that I have seen productivity go up by an easy 20 to 40%, even in the short term. Innovation. Well, the very source of innovation is the creativity of your people. And of course, self-management is perfect for faster decision making. If you're fed up with the fact that important decisions take forever to get through the layers of management and decision maker, and that get bumped off the board agenda because they're overrunning, just like we're doing now, then self-management is definitely the answer. And of course, what I've opened with, resilience. Because you have people who are engaged and motivated and are bought into the success for your organization, they will be more creative in solving tricky issues and more resilient should a real problem arise. Whoops. But we shouldn't ignore that there are downsides, and that's really important. Because you do, if you want to move towards self-management, you do need to invest in training and development. You do need to make sure your people have got not just the skills they need to do their job, but also softer skills such as self-awareness, such as group decision-making, negotiation skills, conflict resolution skills. These are all skills that are rarely taught in business schools, and yet they are vitally essential for self-managing organizations. Also, self-management, it's not a mainstream approach. A lot of businesses that try to adopt its principles, they get called not so polite names in the press and maybe by their peers. So you have to feel comfortable with being different. It will also cause some external pressure, and that is particularly true for organizations who are listed on a stock exchange. For example, I was speaking to the CEO of a large energy organization here, and he said, yes, it takes quite a lot of courage to say to our investors, you know what, go away. We're not going to chase short-term, quarterly improvements that will undermine our business in the long term. So it takes somebody to hold that place. And will also quite likely cause internal resistance. Resistance from both those people who feel that they're giving up some of their power, and some people might also be skeptical because they say, oh, this is just yet another way of making us work harder without giving us more money. And it will need some internal work to overcome such a resistance. And last but not least, self-management is not a panacea for all problems that your organization will encounter. You know, there will still be issues, there will still be disagreements, there will still be worries and concerns. Only thing that I would say is moving towards self-management gives you the adaptability, resilience, and positive culture to overcome these problems. How am I doing for time, Matej?
You have to finish up.
Right. This was very short, and I'm terribly sorry that I couldn't deliver it in person. If you would like to explore any of these aspects in greater detail, please feel free to contact me. Best might be at miriam@coincidentity.co.uk. I'm sure the details will be released via Beep. Also, to make up for the fact that I couldn't be there in person, couldn't answer your questions in person today, I would like to extend a very special offer just to the participant of this seminar. I run happiness discovery days for businesses because more and more businesses are recognizing that happiness is becoming the competitive advantage. Now, this is exclusively for participants of Beep, and I will run free of charge a complimentary online workshop for your organization or team in your organization, where we will look at why happiness is important in business, including some real case studies, what the science is behind there, getting in much more detail, introduce you to some more proven, successful happiness exercises for your business, how you can develop your own, and how you can develop a habit to promote happiness and flourishing in your organization that will engage staff and motivate them, and will even start off developing your own strategy. The benefits of that will be more engaged people, greater resilience, higher productivity, lower absenteeism, and more productivity, and it will help you on the way to adopting principles of self-management. I want to be very clear that that is not a marketing exercise on my part, but a genuine offer to say, I'm so sorry I couldn't be there today, and I hope you got a lot of our session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Miriam, you probably don't hear, but there's a big applause for you. Thank you for being with us. We're going to share information with all the attendants, contacts for the free workshop, and thank you again.
Thank you very, very much, and I really hope you enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
Hvala lepa. Zdaj imamo en kratek odmor za kavo, zato da se spoznate še malo bolj med sabo, naše partnerje, naše pokrovitelje. Eno zanimivo napravo EMS za tiste, ki imate premalo časa za fizične aktivnosti in za šport, so pripravili posebej za vas za testiranje. Nadaljujemo pa od 15:04 naprej. I'll be back in all over your face here.